They lied, they crossed the line. And then they smiled like nothing happened. Like your silence meant yes, like your patience meant permission. But here's the Stoic truth no one tells you. Forgiveness without consequences isn't compassion, it's surrender. In this video, we'll explore what real strength looks like when you finally stop protecting those who keep hurting you. From broken trust to emotional patterns to powerful boundaries, we'll walk through 10 Stoic insights that set you free, not with anger, but with clarity, not to punish, but to protect. If this message already stirs something inside you, subscribe to Stoic Reflections Daily and let's reclaim your peace, one truth at a time. And if you're ready, comment below. What boundary are you finally honoring today? We're told that forgiveness is strength, that letting go means healing. But here's the part no one tells you. Forgiveness, when given too quickly, when handed to people who never asked, never changed, doesn't heal anything. It just erases you from your own story. You show up with patience, with grace. You swallow the pain, hoping your silence will speak louder than your rage. And maybe, like so many of us, you think being the bigger person means carrying the weight of someone else's mistakes again and again. But Stoicism teaches something very different. It reminds us that clarity is kinder than blind forgiveness. That discipline, not emotional tolerance, is how we protect what matters, our peace, our worth, our boundaries. Because let's be honest, how many times have you let someone back in simply because they said, "I'm sorry"? No reflection, no growth, just words. And yet you opened the door, not because they earned it, but because you thought that's what good people do. But being good doesn't mean being endlessly available. And forgiveness without accountability isn't strength, it's surrender. Forgiveness is powerful, but it's not the same thing as reconnection. You can release the resentment and still close the door. You can let go of the anger without handing them the key to your peace. So the next time someone says, "Can't we just move on?" ask yourself, have they truly changed, or have I just stopped standing up for myself? Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stop offering second chances to people who misuse the first. You've heard it before. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." Maybe even followed by a hug, a few tears, or that nervous little smile, the one they always use when they know they crossed the line. And for a moment, you want to believe them. Because we all want to believe that people change when they hurt us. But here's the hard truth. A well-timed apology means nothing if the behavior never changes. You see, they didn't accidentally do it again. They chose to. Because last time, there were no real consequences. Sometimes people don't need to be malicious to be manipulative. They just need to see that their actions still get results. If betrayal still earns your forgiveness, if guilt still grants them access, why would they stop? Let's make it real. A friend who forgets your birthday, but never forgets their own. A sibling who disguises cruelty as just joking. A partner who breaks the same promise over and over, always with a fresh excuse. They're not confused, they're consistent. And deep down, you know the difference. It's the sinking feeling when you realize this isn't a one-time thing. This is who they are when they think you won't walk away. Behavior is truth. Patterns are proof. And sorry without change? That's just rehearsal. Sometimes clarity doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from observation. Let me tell you about Evelyn. She's 72, soft-spoken, the kind of woman who sends handwritten thank you notes and still says, "Bless your heart," with a smile. After her husband passed, her daughter started visiting more often. At first, it felt like love, like healing. She brought groceries, made calls, stayed for tea. Evelyn called it a blessing. But then came the hints. My car's acting up. Things are tight this month. Do you think you could help, just for now? At first, Evelyn said yes, because that's what kind people do. But each time she hesitated, the calls stopped. The warmth turned cold. And then, just as suddenly, everything went back to normal. As if nothing had happened. That's not care. That's a cycle. It's not connection, it's quiet control. And one day, Evelyn started journaling. Not to accuse, just to see. She wrote down every request, every shift in tone, every emotional withdrawal. And the more she wrote, the clearer it became. This wasn't a storm, it was a system. A predictable loop. Not love, not sacrifice, just manipulation in disguise. Sometimes, the moment you stop making emotional excuses and start tracking reality, you stop being confused. And you start being conscious. Because repeated forgiveness doesn't always mean you're strong. Sometimes it just means you're being used. Let's clear something up. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's not cold, it's not dramatic. It's self-respect in action. But for many of us, boundaries feel wrong. Like we're being selfish for saying no. Like we're the bad guy just because we finally ask for what we need. Why? Because we were raised in homes, cultures, or relationships where love was conditional. Where keeping the peace mattered more than keeping your dignity. Now meet James, a 42-year-old father of two. Every Sunday, he visited his aging mother. Out of love, out of duty. But every time he sat at that dinner table, she found a way to tear him down. Are you gaining weight again? You looked better when you were married. Little comments disguised as concern, but meant to wound. At first, James laughed it off. Then, he stopped looking her in the eye. Eventually, Sundays became something he dreaded, not cherished. Until one day, mid-meal, he gently put his fork down and said, "Mom, I come here to spend time with you, not to be insulted. If this keeps happening, I won't be joining these dinners anymore," she cried. She accused him of being disrespectful. But the next Sunday, she didn't mention his weight. She asked about his kids. She listened. That's the power of a boundary. It doesn't always end the relationship. Sometimes, it finally begins one. Because a boundary isn't a wall, it's a door with a lock. And you get to choose who walks through. Here's something we don't say enough. Boundaries aren't the opposite of love, they're the proof of it. We've been conditioned to think love means saying yes. Yes to requests. Yes to discomfort. Yes to giving more, even when it hurts. But real love, the kind that builds, not breaks, makes space for truth. And truth always requires boundaries. A healthy boundary says, I care about this connection too much to let it rot in silence. It says, I want you in my life, but not at the cost of losing myself. Here's what most people miss. If someone truly loves you, they'll adjust when you draw the line. They might be surprised. They might ask questions. But they'll respect it. Because love and respect are inseparable. But if someone pushes back hard, mocks you, guilts you, or calls you selfish, it's not because your boundary is wrong. It's because your boundary disrupted their comfort zone. One where they always win. Love doesn't ask you to shrink. It asks for mutual presence. For two people who can sit at the table as equals, not one constantly bending to keep the other from leaving. So the next time you wonder, Am I being too harsh for drawing the line? Ask instead, what kind of love needs me to betray myself to survive? There's a quiet lie we often tell ourselves in the name of love. It sounds like they're just going through something. It's not their fault. They'll grow out of it, and we repeat it over and over until it becomes a lullaby that puts our boundaries to sleep. But here's the truth that hurts more than silence. When you protect someone from the consequences of their choices, you're not helping them, you're enabling them. Picture this. A mother, full of love, keeps bailing out her grown son. He borrows money he never repays, forgets her birthday but expects gifts, raises his voice, and she stays quiet. Why? Because she believes that one day he'll change. That patience will fix what accountability never touched. But year after year, nothing changes, because he never has to. Her silence became his permission, and her kindness, just a shield for her fear. Fear of conflict, fear of losing him, fear of being alone. This is what enabling looks like. It wears the mask of compassion, but underneath, it's avoidance. Avoiding truth, avoiding change, avoiding discomfort. Stoicism reminds us, compassion without clarity becomes chaos, and forgiveness without friction isn't healing, it's delay. Love isn't about saving someone from their own reflection. It's about standing beside the mirror and saying, I won't stop you from facing this. Peace isn't something you stumble into. It's not handed to you when others finally treat you right. It's something you choose, often in silence, often alone. Carl was a quiet man in his 70s. Kind, soft-spoken, always offering coffee to neighbors who rarely knocked. After his health began to decline, his adult son started visiting more often. At first, Carl felt grateful. But little by little, the visits turned into control. Who could visit? What Carl could say? What money could be spent? And how Carl never argued. He didn't want conflict. He feared if he spoke up, he'd lose his son. So he stayed silent. Until one day, over coffee with a friend, he said the words that broke the spell. I feel like a guest in my own home. It wasn't weakness that kept him quiet. It was the belief that love meant tolerating discomfort. But here's the truth. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's quiet erasure. You don't need to prove someone's wrong to reclaim your space. You don't need their apology, their explanation, their permission. You just need a decision. One quiet moment where you say, enough, I choose me now, and from that place, peace begins. Not from being understood, but from finally understanding yourself. There comes a moment when you realize you've been bleeding for people who never even brought you a bandage. You gave them time. You gave them space. You gave them the benefit of every doubt, and still, they kept cutting. Not always with malice, but always without repair. And the worst part? They thought it was okay, because you stayed. See, when you forgive without consequence, you don't teach them love. You teach them permission. Permission to repeat. Permission to avoid growth. Permission to believe they were never wrong to begin with. You wait for the apology that never comes. You hope for the shift that never happens. And all the while you shrink. You silence your instincts. You betray your own peace just to keep the connection alive. A connection that's slowly destroying you. But there's a line, a Stoic line, that saves you. Maybe they deserve a second chance, but I deserve peace more. And that changes everything. You stop explaining. You stop begging. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to fix. Instead, you choose quiet. You choose clarity. You choose yourself. Some people spend their whole lives waiting. Waiting for the apology. Waiting for them to change. Waiting for that one moment where everything finally clicks. When the person who hurt you suddenly becomes who you always hoped they'd be. But what if that moment never comes? Stoicism asks us something brutally honest. Why would you give your inner peace to the very person who took it from you? Hope is beautiful, but hope without evidence, that's a cage. You sit in silence, holding your breath, shrinking yourself just to keep them from walking away, not realizing you're already the one being left behind. Emotionally, spiritually, slowly. And here's the truth we don't talk about. Endurance is not always virtue. When it has no boundaries, it stops being strength and starts becoming self-erasure. You water yourself down to avoid their discomfort. You explain, justify, overfunction. You call it loyalty. You call it love. But deep down, you know, it's just fear. Fear of conflict. Fear of being alone. Fear that setting a boundary will push them away. But if someone only stays because you have no boundaries, they were never really with you in the first place. You don't owe your lifelong patience to someone who never earned your trust. You owe yourself the courage to stop bleeding for a future that may never come. There comes a point when you stop waiting. Waiting for the apology. Waiting for them to understand. Waiting for the perfect words, the right moment, the clean ending. And in that stillness, you realize something powerful. You don't need their permission to protect your peace. You don't need their blessing to walk away. You don't need them to see the damage they caused in order to start healing. You don't even need closure. Because sometimes you are the closure. That quiet moment when you choose clarity over chaos, peace over performance, dignity over dysfunction. This is what Stoicism teaches us. You don't have to fight. You don't have to explain. You don't have to convince someone who never planned to listen. You just need one thing: courage. Courage to say, I've given enough. I've bent enough. And from this moment on, I choose me. So when someone asks, don't you think they deserve another chance? You can answer calmly and clearly, maybe, but I deserve peace more. And that's not cruelty. That's clarity. That's self-respect. That's love directed inward.